Hello, my fellow Americans and citizens of the world. This is that book I was telling you about, The 13th Tribe, written by Arthur Koestler, who unfortunately, after writing this book, he and his wife were exposed to radiation poisoning and died within 6 months from acute leukemia caused by radiation poisoning, and they died in 1983. He wrote the book in 1976. And I'm going to read you a few excerpts, not from the book, but just from the book cover. And perhaps you can read the book yourself for free online. The book is available online if your library does not have a copy. This is a copy, 1976 copy, that my local library had in the inventory. This book traces the history of the ancient Khazar Empire, a major but almost forgotten power in Eastern Europe, which in the Dark Ages became converted to Judaism. Khazaria was finally wiped out by the forces of Genghis Khan, but evidence indicates that the Khazars themselves migrated to Poland and formed the cradle of Western Jewry. To the general reader, the Khazars, who flourished from the 7th to the 11th century, may seem infinitely remote today, yet they have a close and unexpected bearing on our world, which emerges as Mr. Koestler recounts the fascinating history of the ancient Khazar Empire, a major but almost forgotten power in Eastern Europe at about the same time that Charlemagne was emperor in the West. The Khazar sway extended from the Black Sea to the Caspian, from the Caucasus to the Volga, and they were instrumental in stopping the Muslim onslaught against Byzantium, the eastern jaw of the gigantic pincer movement that in the west swept across northern Africa and into Spain. Thereafter, the Khazars found themselves in a precarious position between the two major world powers, the Eastern Roman Empire and Byzantium, and the triumphant followers of Muhammad. As Mr. Koestler points out, the Khazars were the third world of their day, and they chose a surprising method of resisting both the Western pressure to become Christian and the Eastern to adopt Islam. Rejecting both, they converted to Judaism, which is a misnomer since the word Judah, anything starting with a J, does not exist in the Hebrew. There is no J in the Hebrew nor the Greek alphabet. In the second part of this book, The Heritage, Mr. Koestler speculates about the ultimate faith of the Khazars and their impact on the racial composition and the social heritage of modern Jewry. He produces a large body of meticulously detailed research in support of a theory that sounds all the more convincing for the restraint with which it is advanced. Yet, should this theory be confirmed, the term anti-Semitism will become void of meaning, since, as Mr. Koestler writes, it is based on a misapprehension shared by both the killers and their victims. The story of the Khazar Empire, as it slowly emerges from the past, begins to look like the most cruel hoax which history has ever perpetrated. Can you imagine that? Projecting themselves as descendants of the ancient Hebrews, ancient Israelites. The most cruel hoax which history has ever perpetrated. About the author. Arthur Koestler was born in 1905 in Budapest. Though he studied science and psychology in Vienna, at the age of 20 he became a foreign correspondent and worked for various European newspapers in the Middle East, Paris, Berlin, Russia, and Spain. During the Spanish Civil War, which he covered from the Republican side, he was captured and imprisoned for several months by the Nationalists, but was exchanged after international protests. In 1939 and 40, he was interned in a French detention camp. After his release, due to British government intervention, he joined the French Foreign Legion, subsequently escaped to England, and joined the British Army. Like many other intellectuals in the 30s, Koestler saw in the Soviet experiment the only open alternative to fascism. He became a member of the Communist Party in 1931, but left it in disillusionment during the Moscow purges in 1938. His earlier books were mainly concerned with these experiences, either in autobiographical form or in essays or political novels. Among the latter, Darkness at Noon has been translated into 33 languages. After World War II, Mr. Koestler became a British citizen, and all his books since 1940 have been written in English. He was living in London until the time of his death, but he frequently lectured at American universities and was a fellow at the Center for Advanced Studies in Behavioral Sciences at Stanford in 1964-65. In 1968, Mr. Koestler received the Sonning Prize at the University of Copenhagen for his contributions to European culture. He is also a commander of the Order of the British Empire as well as one of the 10 companions of literature elected by the Royal Society of Literature. His works are now being republished in a collected edition of 20 volumes. Whatever you do, my friends, be certain and read this piece. It is just most compelling, and I think will lead you to rethink our Middle East policy. I know most of you probably think that you are supporting the seed of Abraham by supporting the modern state of Israel, but there is no nexus between the modern state of Israel and the ancient state of Israel. Kostler tells his story with characteristics as treading a lucid, often entertaining path, and throws a light of shrewd common sense on what is known of the Khazar culture. His thesis is intriguing and at several points credible. A stimulating book, George Steiner, The Sunday Times. A fascinatingly controversial book, Kostler marshals his arguments with great skill. He is certainly very persuasive. Philip Toynbee, The Observer. An intriguing book which has to be read, clearly written and well presented, a brilliant focus on facts which too few know. Robin Lane Fox, The Financial Times. One of his most interesting books, interesting in its own right as a narrative of a proud and forgotten race, but also for its possible curative effects among those still influenced by genetical or racial notions of Jewishness. John Conning, The Tablet. An explosive book by a masterly popularizer of scientific ideas, Keith Brace, The Birmingham Post. A few of the English reviews of the 13th Tribe. So long, America and the rest of the world. Check the book out. You won't regret it.